Hey guys, welcome back to Creating Careers Podcast. On today's episode, I had a chance to sit down and talk with Adam Wesley. Adam is an incredible musician and composer. He's written music for commercials as well as films and is just really an incredible guy. I can honestly say that I truly enjoyed this conversation, and I think you will as well. Check it out. Adam Wesley, thank you so much for joining me today on Creating Creators Podcast, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited because I think you're sort of the beginning of almost like a trilogy of audio engineers.
Great.
Is what I would say, because I've got who all do I have scheduled? I've got you. I shouldn't ever bring this stuff up because I can never think. There goes my thumbs up. But I can never think. Yeah, I can never think of names on the fly. Hang on, I need to. I got to settle my brain for a second.
Yeah.
I'm awful with names.
Hey.
Okay.
Good,
Who else the audio engineers in Birmingham? Let me just pull up my calendar.
Eric Chapman.
Eric Chapman. He's one I've been trying to nail down. I'm supposed to have him next week. But it may end up getting messed up. Like we're still talking through that. And the other one is Garrett Lee. Do you know Garrett?
I don't.
Okay, yeah. So he's based out of close to Columbus, Georgia, I think.
Okay, great.
Sort of he's over in that area more so. But anyway, I've got him scheduled next Monday, and then Eric Chapman may be the same day, like that afternoon, or it may be I may have to catch up with him another time. But anyway, I'm excited to sort of talk about this, even though I know nothing.
Okay.
So just go ahead and put that out there right now.
Okay.
If I ask a really stupid question that you're like, this guy knows nothing, I admit that.
Yeah, okay? It's amazing, like, how many people preface a conversation with, like, hey, I don't know anything about you do, you know? Like, yeah. But you obviously it's necessary, and you hear it.
That's true. That's
the
true.
Obvious thing.
Yeah. But I mean I do video, so obviously I delve with audio, but only out of necessity, definitely not out of strength or knowledge or understanding of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I play the game, and that's about it.
Yep. It's a vital part. It's, for me, it's always like, obviously, talk to anybody, it's like 50-50, like moving picture, audio, they're both equal,
Yeah.
And, just one, it's, why, I do some production, and while you're on set, people are hoping that you're getting what's necessary for the final product.
Right.
Reviewing can't necessarily happen like in the, it could, but it's not happening until you get into post,
right.
You like see what's happening there. But I do that occasionally.
I did I had a wedding just this past Saturday, and I don't do a lot of weddings, but I video weddings some, and the audio is always like my worst nightmare. Because I'm like, especially of the ceremony itself. Yeah, you never know, like, what kind of interference are we going to run into?
Oh, yeah.
What if a battery pack goes dead on me? What if...
I can imagine that pressure. People ask me to, I'm a piano player. People ask me to, like, play weddings.
Yeah.
I've done a couple of them. But, like, I feel so much pressure. I'm like, if I mess this up, you're going to remember this. Like, it's all about me at this point. Like, you're going to remember this mistake for the rest of your life and the rest of your memory. The mistake is on me.
Yeah. Well, and the good thing with video is ultimately they only know it if you deliver it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, hey, that audio was crap. Well, I guess we're not delivering audio this time.
Yeah, it's like you're not going to hear your valves again.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's a double-edged sword, but yeah. All right, so let's get started, because I do want to respect your time. Obviously, it's 8 a.m. You were out last night a little bit at an event, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't too bad then.
That was bad. No.
Yeah, I figured because you had a drive, right, from
Yeah,
Birmingham up to Gadsden.
we live in Gadsden. Yep.
Yeah,
We live in
yeah.
Gadsden.
Well, it
The
was
south
great
side.
to.
So it's like Gadsden, and then south side is like over here. Nope.
Yeah.
So whichever.
You got to reverse it for the
Yeah,
camera.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was really great sort of talking with you and your wife. I really appreciate the invitation,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, to the event last night, and it was really nice because it was like horror themed, and my wife hates horror movies, so
Oh
it
yeah.
was
I don't
the
watch horror movies.
it was for me. It was really great. Her reaction, man, it was. So we had, just for the audience, for their purpose, Cedar Creative had a premiere of like a horror short film that they had done that you had scored, as well as audio engineered the whole thing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Audio
So
mastered, I guess, is the term.
yeah, did some sound design. So like, um, Ethan and I did the sound design for the film, but my part was mostly the Foley, like the, you know, clothes rustling, like footsteps, you
Yeah.
know, making it more visceral rather than, flat, and
Yeah.
just adds like a depth of dimension to it. So it's like, I don't really do that very often. So it was like a huge learning experience. It's like, usually, I mean, I've done sound design before, but it's for like ads. So it's like 30
Right.
seconds. This is like 30 minutes. So I think 27 minutes, 27 minutes. Yeah. Of a lot of replacement or just enhancing.
Yeah.
So that was, and then doing the music. So it's like you're having to be creative emotionally, but then very practical at the same time, so it's just it was a wonderful, I was telling Amy as we left, like, I think my expectations for myself just leveled up after doing it. So like we're always learning, we're always growing, and like taking on a challenge like that. And that's kind of why I want to do it, is like, I've never done anything more than like 10 minutes of music, and then being able to think of a story arc over 27 minutes, 30 minutes, that was a challenge. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I don't know how anyone does like a full feature film kind of stuff. But I mean, even short films do what?
They have teams. Like Hans Zimmer does not write the movie by himself. Like,
right.
He has like remote control productions that like he writes the themes, and then like everybody's like, how can we put this into the film?
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed the film last night. Even Marcus January, his films, enjoyed those. There were 3 of his films that were shown. What was really great for me, like I mentioned before, my wife hates horror films, and she and I are sitting in the theater, and during the moments where, especially with Marcus's films, because he does a decent bit of like jump scares, and kind of stuff. But my wife, man, it was like on cue, man. She was reacting perfectly to Marcus's videos. It was great.
Amy and I were sitting in the back, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't see this. I can't handle horror movies. So
yeah. There were a few parts that I was trying to tell my wife, you gotta watch. You can't miss this part. And then she would ask me afterwards, like, what happened? I was like, you gotta watch it. I can't describe that.
I don't want that in my brain. I don't want that.
Yeah. But it was a great event, and again, I really appreciate you inviting me. It means a lot. It was very enjoyable, and right now I'm looking at my slides. Let me remove them real quick, and then I realized like I was at the end. It started on the last slide, and I'm like, I don't want to go back through it. There's some surprises in here I don't want you to see quite yet.
Oh no! How did that?
I will say, last night I asked you a question that surprised you. I think there's going to be a photo or 3 in here that will surprise you.
No way.
I think so. Do you care to guess it to what it might be?
I don't. No, I don't. I don't know.
Okay. All right. I don't think
now I'm like a little scared.
If these photos were out there of me, I would be shocked. I would be shocked that somebody found it. Okay. I'm just saying. So
is this? Okay. Let's just. I'm here for it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's too late at this point, right?
I have to let it happen.
Yeah, you're going to be like, edit all of it. Just cut the whole thing.
Oh yeah, that conversation before recorded.
Yeah.
We gotta edit that out. Yeah.
There you go. Exactly. Okay, well, let's start off, and you just tell me, who is Adam Wesley? Tell me a little bit about just you personally.
Oh, well, I'm married to Amy. I have 4 kids. We started our life and family in Birmingham, and then about 4 years ago, we decided to make the change for me to go freelance, and so we moved up north to the south side on Amy's parents' property. So her dad has about 46 acres, and we live on a barn on the back side of the property, converted barn, that my mother-in-law named Birdsong Cottage. And so she has like this painting of birdsong. It's beautiful up here. She named Birdsong because you walk out in the spring and it's like overwhelming amount of birds. Just their songs, and it's just so much land and space. And we have 4 kids, and so we needed a space for them to roam. And yeah, it's been wonderful. Just trying to get this started. Taking the risk and the challenge of, hey, live in Alabama and I write music. It sounds a little ridiculous, but Amy was just game to like, hey, let's see if this can work.
Yeah.
Out. Yeah.
Tell me so that whole idea of Birdsong Cottage and even walking out. One thing I'm always interested, especially somebody that does sort of what you do.
Yeah.
Do you walk around constantly with like theme music? Like, do you have a soundtrack that's of your life going on in your head? Yeah. Are you the star of your own movie constantly in your head?
I'm a pretty selfish person, but I try not to be very that self-centered. But I think, as a kid, I think everybody had like one of those Truman Show moments. Like as a kid, like, is this all about me?
Yeah.
Everybody's watching me, and you realize like no one cares.
Everyone's thinking the same thing about themselves. So
yeah, exactly. And so, no, I think living out here has just, Amy and I have been able to embrace the idea of living a very simple, peaceful life. And she was a ballet dancer for like professional ballet dancer for 13 years, toured the entire world. She's so much cooler than me. Oh my God. I was working at Starbucks in Trussville when we were engaged, and she was like dancing at the Russian State Theater. And I was like texting her. I can't remember which app. I was like, she's way cooler than I am, It's like,
it sounds like it. I should be interviewing her.
She's brilliant. Yeah, you should. And then, yeah, we just really like embrace this quiet, simple life. And I wrote an album, kind of like, not an album, like 6 songs, like 6-song EP, kind of encapsulating like our first 3 years here, just like different emotion, different segments of time. And it's been probably the best thing for us as a family, because we're just like here together. I work from home, we homeschool, we're just like in doing life together. And honestly, that's like the big, like, it's, working with brands, even like it's putting themes and music and my job inside of reality. I'm not looking for any muse. Like, I'm not, people are always like, what inspires you? What brings you? It's like, my family does. It's like everything is happening in real life. There's a Lego room right outside this office, and I can be working so hard on something in here, but then someone breaks a Lego and all hell breaks loose.
Right.
Everything. So basically, we're trying to get at everything I write is settled in some sort of like reality.
Yeah.
It's all happening, inside this like little house. So
do you hear music in either really like just sounds that happen naturally? Do you find a pattern to that and hear music in that? Or do you have like a rhythm in your head sometimes that you sort of catch? Like, do you find moments where you're like, hang on, let me try this? Or is it all like you're living your life, and then when you need to work, you go work. Does that make sense?
It's both and. I was in a meeting for doing like a spot with Legion, like their hype video walkout song, and I was talking with the creative director, and I'd written the song, and I knew exactly what I was going to do by the time he pitched it to me. Like, he described it, like I knew exactly. So I went home and did it in like a day. So I knew exactly what it needed to be, and a few little tweaks, but, and then other times, like, it's just a slog. Sometimes you just, there was one piece I wrote, and it was like six demos to try to get it exactly right. But some people have to be willing to go through that process. Other times it's just like right off the bat, you know exactly what it needs to be. You got it. And then other times it's just, we got to do some exploring to be able to get this right, Because, I mean, music is so like, it is, what's the word I'm looking for? It is so divisive. Like, people like,
it's worse than politics.
They love it or they hate it. They know exactly what they like, and they know exactly what they don't like.
Yeah.
It's like the people who don't like country, like, they could like all this other music, but they're going to let you know, like, hey, I don't like country. Everything but country. And it's just like, well, let's start off on the negative, shall we? That sounds great.
Let's put a banjo in it.
It's like, tell me what you like. I don't like country.
Yeah.
So it can polarize people. That's probably like the word. I'm not divisive, but it's polarizing.
Yeah.
So so that's my job, is just try to take in what someone is going for, like what they think it needs to be, and even if the conversation begins with like, hey, I don't know anything about audio or about music, and then being able to listen to them and be like, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying, but what if it sounded like this? And then just make sure that they feel heard, like whatever they're like pitching, whatever they're going for, is like making sure that they feel heard with their ideas too.
Yeah. But then also bringing sort of your expertise into it and sort of guiding even what they don't know, like guiding them through that process. I would imagine.
And I think it's also just ensuring them like, hey, if we start this, we'll be able to finish it in a good amount of time, and it may be some unknown for you, especially if you've worked with custom music before, maybe some unknown for you. But if we begin something, I know how to finish it. I know how to take it to the finish line, what it needs to be. My expectations are really high, so it's, for myself, are really high. So it's going to be, I'm going to do the best I can to make it the most excellent thing that it can be. So.
Have you ever not made it to the finish line?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We will make it to the finish line. Although there was this one time.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, everything's subjective. It was just like, it was a wild, I think I'll go into it. It was a wild job. It was like, hey, we need some, it was for a hospital. They're like, hey, we need some, I really like this Celtic music track. I'm like, okay, that's strange. I didn't say that. But we're like, but I also like the House of Cards theme. I'm like, I have no idea how that even connects.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm sure there's Irish people
not working out. Ended up being like, okay, I don't know what you want, and having to walk away from that.
Yeah.
Celtic music and House of Cards. It's wild.
That's I do like House of Cards, and I do like, in any of the Celtic kind of stuff. But
I do too.
Yeah, but those don't necessarily seem like they go together.
And they, it was interesting.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your journey. I want to know about your creative journey specifically. Like, what did you start off in? I imagine most people join a band, right? Or
no?
Or did you do this? I don't have shots of your band.
Okay.
Don't think. Okay. No.
Okay.
No. But tell me about your journey. Trust me, it's worse than your band, I think.
Oh God. Okay. I don't know, dude. You should have seen my hair back in the day. It was.
I do have some shots of your hair. I think I do have some of those coming up. So.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
No. So Yeah, so I, took piano lessons until I was 16, and because I wanted to join a band, and so I joined a band. I was a vocalist. You're 16. You're just playing like it. Yeah, it was a wonderful time. Honestly, like it was the Birmingham underground indie hardcore scene, um, and we were just playing like churches and um, holes in the wall. I remember playing in a abandoned building that someone just had a generator. He brought in a generator, and that's where we played. It was really cool, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like looking back, like that's kind of dangerous too. Like, but so played in bands, was vocalist. I feel like I was so fortunate. I had some really wonderful, brilliant, nerdy high school friends, and so we were in a band called For Notation, and we wrote RPG music with breakdowns. So it's a hardcore band. I sang, I played guitar, um, and there was a guy named Thayer Halu, and he's one of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my entire life. This guy knows how to write game music and knows how to write some breakdowns. Um, so I feel like we just played video games and wrote music in high school, and it was awesome. Like we were super nerdy. We would have like we stay over. We bring our big tube TVs over to each other's houses, and we would just stay up late playing video games, and wrote some really great music in Guitar Pro. And
What kind of games were you playing then? I'm
dude,
trying
Final
to
Fantasy
date you a little
RPG.
bit.
RPG. So I was playing Final Fantasy 10. I was playing
Yeah.
Star Ocean. Um, I was. I can't. We didn't really play Halo very
See,
often.
Halo was
Sometimes
big
we
for
did.
me.
Yeah.
That was that, especially whenever we talk about linking together Xboxes. I
Yeah.
mean, kids these days, they don't know anything about
They
it.
don't know. Yeah.
To
They
play
don't know what a
to
LAN party is.
yeah,
You know what a LAN party is. So we were. I mean, we all had PS2s, and so
okay,
that was our system. We
yeah,
were all playing different Final Fantasy RPG tactic
yeah.
type of games, like super nerdy, super.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean, like,
Final Fantasy alone was one of those, man, that I never got into, but I had a lot of friends that did. And
yeah.
it was one of those that's like, they're so, like that kind of world for me wasn't something that I was interested in. I
Oh,
enjoyed the
dude, because it's like
military kind of
immersive.
stuff.
It's
Yeah.
immersive. You're just like, I gotta be this character. Kingdom Hearts, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but it was fun, and being around these brilliant people like Thayer Halu, Garrett Hudson, Ben Bowers, Andre Tran. I mean, these guys are brilliant musicians, and we were just in Clay, Alabama, playing video games, writing music, playing shows, touring. It was fun. It was
That
fun.
sounds, I mean, it sounds like a
Very
great
fortunate.
teenage.
And we didn't party. We just like we hated that whole scene. We just like, "Oh, I don't want to. That sounds stupid. So we were like, we'd rather play video games.
Well, and from there, how did like what was your journey professionally speaking? Like,
Yeah.
how long did or how did you go from there to where you're scoring commercials and short films now?
Oh yeah. So I worked at a church in Birmingham for oh gosh, 13 years. Started off as a musician, started producing albums for them, and then started working with their creative team on videos. And so actually putting music to motion picture. Um, I was I don't know, how long have I been doing that? Uh, about 11 years. So I did that at this church for a long time, and then we decided to make the change to me just doing it full time. So, but when I went freelance, I was still producing artists. Like I was still producing artists like Bethany Barr Phillips, Marquita Anthony, um, and that's where I began. And then I contacted Eric Chapman right when I went freelance. I was like, "Hey, man, if you ever need any help with audio on set, I would love to learn how to do it." And
He seems to be the goat of
he
on
is.
set
He's
audio.
a genius. He's a genius.
Yeah.
Because he's so solutions based, but he's also very creative. very creative solutions, but he's in the production and post-production world. So he can take things from beginning to end. So he can quickly make decisions in the moment in production if he's over the post-production and come up with the best solution possible if there's an issue. And so he's brilliant with that. And so I just contacted him. We got coffee, and I was like, hey, man, I would love to get in on doing some audio, but also write music. That's what I want to be a main thing. So, because I was just like, man, all these decision makers are not sitting on Instagram as much as the algorithms want us to believe they are.
I get that.
Like the creative directors aren't there. They're out there working, and they're out there making things happen. So I was like, I want to get on set. So so I contacted him and just started making connections, started meeting people. And yeah, people just gave me the opportunity, just being available as a full-time composer. People are drawn to that. It's just like, that's something that is, there's some of us here in Birmingham, but being able to do that full-time, being able to offer that full-time to people, I think people found value in that.
Yeah, I think it's really neat. So many people, Cedar Creative is an example of this. But so many people got their start, it seems like, in the church scene, especially that sort of like 90s, early 2000s kind of church scene seems to have been like a hotbed for people in the creative industry. I think,
Yeah.
I know for me personally, I had a youth pastor who was a graphic designer by like, that was his college degree. And, and he was one that was pushing the envelope, I felt like, early on, back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that inspired me to whenever I got the chance to teach Photoshop and Premiere Pro, like, he was the only reason I even knew what Adobe was.
Right.
But it seems like so many people, at least in the Birmingham area, seem to have got their start in that kind of a scene. And that's cool that your story sort of ties in with that as well.
Yeah, these churches, they're so big, and they have to communicate to so many different people, and so they put an emphasis on communicating through graphic design or video, and because they're so large. In comparison with the staff, that is a way of getting information out, that's to replace like a handshake or a relationship. It's in those moments. And so
when I think they pushed the volume, or not the volume, the quality expectation up so high. You do have the churches in the area that are sort of like those big mega churches, but then also even the small churches, like, just to sort of like stay relevant, it seemed like everybody was sort of pushing that bar up, which made people like me and you that were in those areas, or more like people like you and my youth pastor. I wasn't doing much stuff then, but it was like, it was amazing the quality that people were like, I've got to learn that. Not to mention, it sort of coincided with an incredible time of like YouTube capabilities and that kind of stuff. And speaking of that, where did you really find yourself going to learn? Was it something that you just learned by trial and error, or did you have a person you went to learn stuff, or did you sort of go to YouTube University?
I think, having the opportunity to work, I did some desktop music production classes in like the early 2000s. No, it was like, no, it's not early 2000s, like 2008, 2009. Did some online classes with Berkeley, and that was like old Logic, Reason, like 3, maybe Reason 1 or 2. And that helped out some, give me an awareness of how to like put this all down, but I didn't really get into it until right after Amy and I got married, and I was asked to come on staff for this church to do music production, and so just learning the programs, learning how to, produce a song, and then being able to take the production quality and put it into like a sermon series bumper, or like a countdown video, or some sort of like testimonial video. I had the opportunity I think just learning while doing, and the sheer quantity of always having to do it and do it really, really fast also. Cause you have like a couple, like 2-3 days before it needs to play somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. That would, the pressure, along with a little bit of, it seems like at times there was some helpful grace, maybe that like even if things didn't always turn out perfectly in churches, it seemed like it was somewhat good enough, even though oftentimes the bar was being raised each time.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some people's experience.
Yeah, you may have not. You're like, this is horrible. You're fired.
Well,
so
some people, so let's leave it at that.
That's funny. All right, here we go. Tell me about it, man. Was this even on your radar?
No, it was not. Oh my!
Are you going to make me cut this out?
Did you get this from my mother-in-law's Facebook page? Oh my God!
I did, dude. I did some. I tell you, she dumps photos, man. There's a lot on there, and I had to scroll through a ton.
Oh my gosh!
But she does love you, obviously.
She does, yeah. So my mother-in-law, she's I remember the first time I met her. She's a brilliant creative lady. She's a painter by trade and a sculptor. She's a brilliant artist. And so one of my albums, 3 Years of Birdsong Cottage, she painted the album artwork. Anyway, it's going to take a while to get there this way. So we're going to feel like she's putting on plays. This was a fundraiser for the Women's Club in Gadsden. Okay. So she took, what was the name of it? Oh my God. She took some murder mystery play, and she was like, you know what? You know what's really going to make this funny? We're going to bring in Rocky and Bullwinkle. And so she was like, I need you to play Theodore Roosevelt meets Rocky and Bullwinkle for this play, the Women's Club. And so we performed in the foyer, and oh my gosh, so we were going to do it like in right after the shutdown, like right after the lockdown.
Yeah.
But during that time we found out she had cancer, and so we had to put the play. We just had to stop rehearsing and put the fundraiser aside, and then when she got feeling better, probably like halfway through her chemo, she was like, "Hey, can we do this play?" She just needed something. She just needed something to like work on, and so I was like, "Absolutely, let's do this." So we got everybody back together and did the fundraiser, and this is me just saying yes to my mother-in-law.
Well, you're in luck. There's footage of
no,
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh my God.
No, there's no footage has been given to me at least. But just FYI for your mother-in-law, if she's watching this ever, you're welcome to send me footage, and I will subtly include it in something that we release.
I cannot believe you found that. That's so crazy.
I know. I'm telling you, man.
I gotta watch out. That's not my real mustache. I wish it was.
I know that's a killer mustache if it was, man. That one's impressive. But yeah, when I saw this, I was like, this is worthy of the podcast.
Okay, great. And I'm so glad you counted this worthy. She's honestly gonna be thrilled. She was like, this made a podcast. She's so sweet. She actually has COVID right now.
Oh gosh, man.
And she had to postpone her last treatment, chemo treatment to beginning of next week. So yeah. Well, this is gonna make her very happy. I need to actually take a picture of this. Be like, hey, I was doing this interview, and then look what popped up, Brenda. Okay.
That's great. Well, I hope that's able to make her day a little bit better.
Totally will.
Yeah, and I look forward to whenever she's passed all of her treatments as well as COVID. When this thing's released, she'll get a good experience of just listening to it and watching it.
Yes, she's gonna love it. She's like, "This is why I did this."
That's great. Well, I thought it was great. I think your costume looks incredible, and I'm
Oh,
glad to hear that it was for a good cause. And
yeah,
obviously, you really did it as a service to an incredible mother-in-law. So
I did.
props to
I did.
you and to her on
Yeah,
this.
thanks. And we move on. Great.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about your work in general. Couple of things I want to ask you, just sort of like, and this part really blows my mind. Just your process in general. We were talking about it a little bit last night. It really, like the way that I work with music. It like there's the track. I lay it down oftentimes, and then I sort of time things to the music.
Yeah.
But in your case, I feel like it's almost the reverse. Like they
Yeah.
give you the visuals. How do they even lay out the visuals? I wonder. But then how is it that you're constructing things for, I mean, is there already a rhythm to it and you're like, okay, I've got to match this rhythm, but then also I've got to match the emotions of the visuals?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit of your process, and you can start at whatever point you want to in the process.
Yeah.
I have a
So,
lot of questions about this because
yeah.
again, I know nothing.
Well, I'm trying to think. Like, there's always, I was talking with, I, you know, one of my favorite artists. He came to town, and he and I were talking at one of his shows. And he showed me a demo of one of his songs, and I was like, "Dude, this is it. You found the thing." And he was like, "That's exactly what I thought. I got the thing." And I was like, and and we went on. It's like, it's the thing is, um, the it's what makes the song identifiable, special. You call it the hook. You call it the
Okay.
melodic hook. You call it. It could be a sound. It could be what makes it set apart. Like what makes it identifiable is the thing. And it could be the way that something's recorded. It's just searching for whatever that thing is, and then everything else falls into place. And so that's the quickest way of like getting what you. And if like you talk to musicians, there's always like, hey, there's the thing that. Otherwise, it's just elevator music. Otherwise, it's just stuff that's just happening in the background, and you don't really, nothing's identifiable. It's just there. But like if you can find the thing, the hook, whatever it is, it's so hard to describe. My wife, she is she's a ballet instructor at Briarwood, so she also does choreography, but she can do the thing with choreography. Like it can look normal, then all of a sudden she does this wild, like twist in the movement of the girls that are dancing, and it's the thing. It's what makes it special, And so if you can find that, whatever that is, however you can describe it, then that will make everything else fall into place.
Do you have like a certain like secret sauce that you always at least try, or like is there a certain sound or something that you're like 90% of my music you're going to find this in there because it always works, or it always just adds that certain element to it that's needed? Or is
No,
there just something even in like 10% of it that you're like, I usually use these?
no, a lot of composers have like this humongous template that they start off with. It has all their instruments, everything's in there, and it probably makes things. It's too overwhelming for me. I literally start off with nothing in my template. It's just empty. I have a template for my template. That's what I start off with. It's just like
Just a blank
that. I
canvas.
like the way that counter looks. Like it's just these. I like the way the track setup is on this one. This is at 23.98. Frame rate setting. It's just so basic, has nothing to it, and then it's just finding the thing. It's like when I was working on Billy's film, I was, he asked me to score for A Place to Be Fed, and I wanted to find something identifiable right from the start. And the movie opens up with like this food, being on like a grocery not aisle, but the
It's
conveyor
the
belt.
conveyor belt. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
And so
where it's being checked out.
picking up scanning, so you're hearing the beeping. But I was like, I took my synth and some pedals, and I was like, let me make some sort of ambulance sound, so it feels sort of like dangerous. I all this middle aisle food that people are being fed. Um, and then coming up with a theme that would recur. And so I used a pedal and one of my synthesizers, to come up with the theme, and then just everything just kind of fell into place. That was the thing. It was this sort of dangerous, not again, we're talking, it just sort of sounded like an ambulance. And so it had that motion rubbing against the beeping of the food being bought in the middle aisle, like all this middle aisle food being bought, and it's how people are getting their nutrition. And then the theme being played on top of that. And then added strings, got stuff recorded. It's one of my favorite things I've ever written, was the theme for Billy's Place to Be Fed.
Yeah, no, it was a great film in general, and definitely it's one of those things. Like, do you feel like if your track stands out too much, that's a bad thing?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, no, that's the worst thing possible. Like it's the balance of like, hey, how can I? And again, that's why you find the thing, because the thing is going to be. It sounds so mysterious, but the thing is going to be what makes it identifiable enough, that brings the identity to the piece of music that you're working on, or the film, or the moving picture that you're working on, the commercial that you're working on. And then all these other things can just enhance it without being distracting, So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something unique, something that is kind of sums up in one sound, not many sounds, and I used to be like a maximalist. I used to be like, let's put everything in there, let's make it huge, But then I quickly discovered that like that's a good tactic sometimes, but then being able to self-edit, like that takes, I believe that being able to self-edit is a practice that is, I think it's talked about quite a lot. But being able to self-edit while you're working, while you're being creative, and not letting it stop you, like, okay, no, wrong direction, let's go this way. Or like, hey, I need to take out these few notes. That's going to bring it all together if I can just edit this as I'm going,
Right. Yeah. Well, so, I wonder, do you often find yourself finding a sound or even like something that would be heard in that visual, and then using that throughout? Is just like you mentioned with the scanning of the groceries, that beep became sort of that instigator for sort of where you might go with your sounds.
Yeah.
Do you find that often? Are you always trying to tie it to something visually, or even like what would naturally be heard in that environment, and then sort of build off of that?
Yeah, there's I worked on a few spots for talk about two for Valvoline. There's one I did for I think it was a Valvoline's announcement for joining with Aramco, and so it was some sort of internal video. But I found this sample of an engine that someone tuned, so it was like so it was a diesel engine. I was like, I'm gonna make a bass out of that, And so we're talking about, the visual was cars, and so I made a bass out of a tuned diesel engine. And I was like, like no one's really gonna know like that's a diesel engine, but it sounds cool. It's just being able to play around with the problems that you're given, because everything that we work on in the commercial world is a problem to be solved. And so there was another spot for Team Valvoline, and they asked me to do the sound design for it also, but I was like, but what if I like made the music the sound design? So like, again, taking a synth and making it sound like an engine, and it's like pulsing, getting faster and faster and faster and faster. And it's like so fun to watch. Even for me, I'm like, dude, that's cool.
there was a guy, Jesse Driftwood. Have you ever heard of him? He started off on Instagram, sort of doing stories. Back when stories would disappear after 24 hours, he would do these huge production type stories. I say production, most of the time it was his day, but he would do heavy editing with it. But he would always take like a natural sound. And I think his background was audio engineering, but he would take a natural sound that happened in the video. It may be his daughter laughing. It may be, at one point, it was this guy saying an expletive. I'll put it that way. It was like, oh, and then but even that, like, oh, he slowed down and would do things. And it was all about like the snow, because he lives in Canada and it snowed again when it was supposed to be springtime or whatever. But anyway, he would always take sounds that happen in his videos and almost like loop them throughout. And he would change the pitch of them at times or slow them down. And it would create sort of this soundtrack in the background to his videos that just sort of, I don't know, it just carried you further into the story, into the narrative, while also just sort of always tying back to like the beginning of it or something that sort of kicked off the video.
There is something that you always want to return to the beginning, you know? And so that's kind of why I begin with a blank slate, because if I find one thing and that the next thing is added, it's going to work. The next thing is added, it's going to work. It's going to work, you know? So it's more so of like letting the piece write itself. This may not be exactly what you're talking about.
No, I think you are.
It's letting the piece write itself after you've identified it. And then you're like, okay, it needs this. It needs this. All I'm doing is just trying to figure out what it needs and what it doesn't need at the same time, you know? And so, it's giving up a little bit of control and just seeing what happens. It's a continual curiosity and fear. You're like, how could I take this to completion? You know, I don't know where it's going to end up, but sometimes I send demos and I'm like, I have no idea how this ends, but here, take a listen.
Yeah. Does the client feedback, does that usually help steer you in a really good direction, or does it feel like client feedback oftentimes just sort of confirms where you're at, but doesn't really give you much direction from that point forward?
You know, the people that I've been working with for, you know, what 5 years now, that we have a good shorthand. And then, so I have one client who's so like generous with his words. And it's not like, hey, this is good, this is bad, I don't like this, don't like that. It's always like sets up a scene, like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Stepping on your front porch, you know, in the morning, I need to feel that, but I want it to be piano based. And so going through like section by section of like feeling, it's sort of like even what instrumentation that they're needing for those sections. Like, I want drums to come in here because we need to drive this point forward. I'm like, oh, wow, you're basically writing this.
Right.
You know? So, and then there's other people that like just trust me. They're like, hey, we need some custom music and we trust you. Here you go. And then there's a few like, oh, I love this. Like, let's tweak this just like a little bit, you know? So yeah, it differs, especially with the people that I've been working with for years now. And I appreciate that. It takes a while. And again, like with music, like it's like with any part in the creative process, like it's so polarizing that working on people just trusting you, you know, trusting that like you have good taste in music, you know? And I'm like, I hope I do, you know, I like it, you know, and I feel like if I like it, then I think a lot of people will like it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's also just writing stuff that I think is cool too, you know?
Yeah. One thing I'm curious, because this is something that I have to deal with in my world and I don't handle it very well. But how much in your process I guess it is dictated by the fact that many people are going to consume that content or that video on a phone? Does the audio, like, is there a certain process that you always sort of finalize your audio with to make sure that it's prepared for that? Or is that more something on the...
I want it to like, I mix a lot of my music, but if I can, I want someone else to mix it, because that's a skill set that someone's worked really hard on. to have. I'll do the
Yeah.
composition side of things, but mixing is like another creative skill set that is worth like paying someone to do, for sure.
Yeah.
Mixing and mastering. So I can do it, and I've done it before, but hiring someone like Eric Chapman, like if I can, I want him to mix it and master it. At the very least, master for web, master for broadcast. Have those different parameters met, so I can just focus on the creative side.
Yeah, it seems it's so frustrating. I was doing something the other day, and I think, well, I say the other day, within the last few months, and I heard it on a phone, and it sounded one way, and then I heard it in my headphones, and it sounded a different way, and then I heard it on the computer, and it sounded a different way, and it's like it's so frustrating how much variation there is in quality of a sound, oftentimes because of maybe it's not even the phone. It's like they have the maxed volume and it should be half volume on a phone.
Right. That's what mastering is so important, to get it to where it sounds the exact same way on multiple devices.
Yeah.
That's something that I could learn how to do it, but I'd rather pay a professional to do that.
Well, how was it last night hearing your stuff in the theater last night?
Yeah, Eric mixed it in 5.1, and it was awesome. It was great.
Yeah. It sounded great. It was very, at times it almost sounded like it reverberated like through your body, because of how powerful that system was there. But it was really neat. I've never had, I've had my stuff shown in front of audiences before, but never in like a theater type setting. That was neat.
Yeah. Short films is all new to me. So the Billy Ivy short film, and then this short film with Cedar I did back to back. Yeah. And I never want to do that again.
Like big space between.
Yeah, my brain is tired.
I believe that.
It was cool. Like, I mostly just have stayed in the commercial world for the past 5 years, and that's where, I made those connections with Billy and with Cedar. So.
Yeah. Well, those are great people to be connected with and to work with.
I got my haircut short for the first time.
Yeah. I think that was supposed to be a before and after picture, so I just split it in two. So
that's great.
You posted them together.
I didn't. May did.
All right. So what kind of things would you tell people that are just starting out in either scoring or just writing music in general, maybe specifically for commercial space or maybe even just music industry in general? Yeah.
So write an obscene amount of music as fast as you can. When I first started in production, I wrote a 30-second song every single day for like 2 years. No one's ever going to hear those songs, but write as much as you can, as fast as you can. Just because, and I say speed because just making creative decisions, being able to make fast creative decisions, trusting your intuition, I believe is something that takes a while. I feel like after 5 years of doing it, like I'm like, okay, maybe like a year ago, I was like, I kind of trust my intuition, but I still need to question and self-edit at the same time. So it's like, okay, I think it needs to go here. I'm going to trust that in this direction. It needs to be this sound. This needs to be strings based. I want this guitar. Trusting those intuitive, creative decisions, and just going with it. And not
did somebody tell you to do that, where you were doing 30 seconds every day, or was that just something that you were like, I don't have anything to do, I'm going to do this?
I don't know. It's like, I'm getting paid to do this and I have no idea what I'm doing, so there's more of like a responsibility I felt. And then showing it to people, like maybe not the stuff you're writing every single day, but something you're like, hey, I kind of think if you start working like in, if it's just you and you're not like putting your work in front of people, then you don't really know if it's going to relate to someone or not. You could be way far off, far off base, with whatever you're doing. If you're just writing music as an artist and you want to express yourself, that's very different. But if you're writing something for a consumer, then that is, you got to understand what like motivates people, or what even satisfies people, with the music while they're listening to it. Like what do they want to hear?
Yeah.
So, if you live in an echo chamber, I mean, there's, I believe Southerners are really wonderful storytellers. I think it's natural. My father is one of the best storytellers. He grew up in Cherokee County up in the mountains. He raised fighting roosters. My grandfather was a moonshiner. But you get the brothers together, they tell some amazing stories. And all that to say, come from a long line of great storytellers and musicians. But Southerners in general, I believe, are brilliant, creative people, but sometimes they're just kind of stuck in an echo chamber. There's a guy who, like, years ago, you drive from here to Huntsville, so from 77 to 278. He thought it was a good idea to take this old Ford and put a bunch of mannequins in it and make it look like a post office scene. Okay. And he thought it was a great idea. Like, just like it's a post office, but like the mailman delivering the mail to like this woman with mannequins. And it's just been left out there for years and it looks terrifying. But this guy like made a decision like at some point in his life where he was like, this is a good idea. This is a great idea. But no one was probably around him like, hey, that's probably not a good idea. Like, why are you doing that? It's like having an old car and then you're putting mannequins in it. But everybody remembers it. Everybody remembers this terrifying car with mannequins in it. I guess
that needs to be the side of maybe one of Marcus January's new horror shorts.
That's right. Yeah, dude. Every time I pass by it, I'm like, this is a creative decision that he didn't run by anybody else. What I'm trying to say is here, Brian, is that if you're doing creative work, put it in front of people. If you're writing music, and don't hold anything precious. A lot of people just want to like, own their music so much, and they're brilliant people. I have a buddy who's a brilliant songwriter, but he will not release his music, and it's more frustrating to me than traffic.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine. I mean, anytime you invest a lot of time and effort into something, and it becomes this child of yours, for you to put that out there in the world and risk criticism or any kind of negative feedback. I think there's that sense of vulnerability we all have whenever we put stuff out there, especially when it's something that's almost like a complete personal creation.
Yes.
And especially the more you put yourself into it, I can imagine that's even more painful.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But if you're doing some sort of creative act, like as an artist, or just as an artist, because I write music for myself, and then I write music for the commercial world, the film world. And I love doing both, writing music for myself is a bit harder, but again, going back to advice, I think getting to the point where, when you're writing music, let me put it like this. You're your own biggest fan. And so that you can actually like, hey, I'm writing music the way that I want to hear music. And I think as any creative is like, I'm making, even as a creative director or like an editor, I'm editing this because this is what I want to see. And this is what I can offer people. So I am my own biggest fan. You look at my Spotify year in rap, I never posted because guess what? I listen to myself.
That's going to be the part you're going to ask me to cut out of the podcast.
That's not entirely true. No, it's not even like, I don't even mean it in an arrogant way. I don't. Yeah. If you are just so pleased with the work that you do, it is very fulfilling. And but you've gone through the process of writing a bunch of music or creating a bunch of content, and you know, and you've shown it to people, and you've worked with people, you've collaborated with people, and you've gotten to a point where like you are pleased with what you're offering. It's a wonderful feeling. I don't believe that's an echo chamber. You're still having to have the practices of self-editing. You're having the practice of continued curiosity. You're having the practice of like balancing out fear too. And all of that together. It's just all of these, and being able to trust your intuition, like, hopefully I'm making sense, but
No, you are definitely.
it's when the work becomes, it can be difficult at times, but again, it's still keeping it in the reality of, this is what I can offer, and always continuing to try to improve myself. It's like working on the Cedar film. It's like, man, my expectations for myself increased, and they're already really high. So being able to, and then always working on your craft, doing, watching tutorial, like working on my orchestration, all that stuff is still happening, but no one sees, reading books on film editing, which is kind of silly. Read a book on film editing rather than watch the film, but it's still like, you get some mechanics out of it. But that is, there's some fulfillment in there, that what you can offer is good, it's good work. So.
What would you say, is there, I guess, in your mind, a distinguishing separation from pro to amateur? Like, what really separates those? Like, all right, I'm just getting started. Okay, I've crossed that line now to where I'm like at the point that I'm delivering real value to clients.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I hate to be, I think self editing, I really do. Like, that is such an important thing to get. I was watching this interview with, not interview, maybe someone just describing James Blake. James Blake, I remember like coming across his first album and just being like a Barnes and Noble and just like listening to the entire album, where you could like go listen to albums with headphones and just be like amazed by it. But he's a maximalist. But the thing that makes James Blake's music work and his producing is that he puts everything in there and then he edits it down. He edits it down looking for, it's like you build like a mountain and you're trying to like carve it out. He's building like building a piece of marble, and he's carving out the statue, essentially. So self-editing is but self-editing takes like a lot of, working with people, collaborating, listening to a lot of music that resonates with you, and being able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Probably have to take this one out, but being able to, hold on, I lost my train of thought.
You're good. You're good.
Where was it going? James Blake, self-editing, and being able to come up with a proper solution to the problem, especially like working on a commercial, you have to like add the emotion to something in 30 seconds, but you need to be able to have all the ideas at once and then narrow it down to one,
I feel like it's sort of, because I oftentimes will start off with like talking head footage or an interview where I put all of the good stuff on a timeline, and then I start narrowing that down to, all right, what's the real story that they're telling? And then I narrow it down even more to, okay, what's the essential elements to this story? Take out the explanative statements and stuff that just sort of like maybe even repeats itself a little bit. And now you just get the absolute core necessity of the story. And then there may be like a part here and there where it's like, all right, but that's the heart of it. Like, it's not just the story, that's the emotional part of the story.
Yeah.
And so it's this sort of like give and take of that narrative, while also trying to say, I love this part. Like, this part was great. I feel connection to this part, but this part is too much. It's taking away from the real point of what's being said here. I feel like that is somewhat similar to what you're calling self-editing. That idea of like you can't get so married to the elements of what you've put in there to where it's too personal, and you can't remove what needs to still be removed.
Right. Yeah. It's you can't like, you can be your own biggest fan but not be in love with. Well, hold on. We got to take that part out. We go back. You still, nothing can be precious, especially when you're serving in the commercial world. You just have to kind of like, man, here's this, many times it's happened. Like I've sent a demo and they're like, hey, that's not it. I'm like, all right, let's go find something else. Then we go explore a different avenue. They're like, well, that's it. And so it just takes some back and forth to be able to get to where it needs to be. Like all you're trying to do is just like get the message across, the messaging across, whether it's the story in a short film or this commercial, and you're trying to enhance it. You're trying to take something that is already good, like it's already a great piece of work, and just enhance it with this custom score or with this sound design, and so it's very rare that I work on something that I'm just like, I hate this.
Right.
Most work, if it's coming to like, if most work that I've worked on, thankfully in Birmingham, is excellent. It's just excellent work, and I'm just doing what I can to make it better, whether that's 10% or 50%. So.
Yeah. The key is not to, I guess, to enhance it without adding too much enhancement to where it's almost, you think of beauty in general. There's beauty that can then be sort of brought forward. I think of, even art, like painting.
Yeah.
There's a point where you need to put down the brush and stop,
Yeah.
but you can always add more,
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can always add more, but like, that Team Valvoline thing I was working on, I wanted to add drums to it. And they were just like, no, this is perfect. I'm like, I don't know okay, if you're happy with it, like I think it needs drums, but there's like, no, this is what it needs to be. And there's no drums in it, but there's so much rhythm going on. It worked, It was something special about that. So, but just being able to collaborate with people too. That is, and there's so many great people in Birmingham. Oh my gosh. They're brilliant at what they do. That's why they're doing what they're doing, and their opinion is worthy. I feel like if I'm being asked to do music for a commercial spot or for a film, I'm gonna have a very large opinion. Okay, very large opinion in the direction that it needs to go, because I'm writing the music. And so if someone comes in and is like, hey, can we collaborate a little bit, or like, can we adjust a few things, or can we add this? It's just like, absolutely. I've already had a pretty big opinion on how this is supposed to feel. So yes, absolutely. So this cannot be held precious by me. This needs to work because we've all worked on it,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what's next for you. And this is where I bring in some of that hair.
Yeah.
You like some of those?
Yeah. That's a honeymoon. That was our wedding at the top. And
right.
Then some sort of anniversary. Oh, that was Amy's birthday. We ate Ethiopian that night, and our honeymoon in Cape Cod.
Yeah, I think you should bring the hair back, man.
I felt like, I had too much going on, up here. It was just kind of hard to maintain, like too much. I was like, but I have to have something. So I grew out the mustache, and I have red mustache.
Oh yeah,
and brown hair.
Yeah, I'm the same way. My beard, although it's getting gray now, it's red, and so it never looks very full at all. Not to mention, I'm like a 12-year-old boy still in some ways, trying to grow hair.
Dude, I don't have it up here.
I don't either. I don't have much of it.
If neck beard, I could do a neck beard.
Dude, well, and me, it's like second and third neck beard, second or third chin beard. That's what it is.
Hey, man.
Yeah. But tell me what's next for you. What's your aspirations at this point? I mean, other than, I mean, I feel like at this point you're just like, hey, I've made enough. I'm retiring and just gonna become Bullwinkle for the rest of your career.
Oh, gosh. Golly. Yeah, that's it. That's it. I'm just.
I need to sprinkle that in more to the point that you can't tell me to take it out. We'd have to delete the whole thing.
No, I know. It's a funny thing. Oh, what's next? I have a few albums that I'm releasing, and I'm really excited about those. One's like a small little EP where I collaborated with some artists that I like. They took one of my songs from my first album, 3 Years of Birdsong Cottage, and remixed it, and so it's kind of fun. One's like an indie, like sample based artist. He wrote a song to like sampled one of my songs and wrote a song to it. It's cool. And then another one's like a instrumental post hardcore band took one of my songs and put a breakdown in it. It's awesome. And then
I wish I understood what you were even talking about. That's it seems like you're so excited about all of that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what a breakdown is. I don't know. I mean,
well, I'll,
sorry, that's coming from somebody that knows enough about music to know how to turn the radio on.
Yeah. It's I'll send it to you and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's a breakdown.
Yeah, I would love to hear it, definitely.
And then I have another album. It's called Our Summer of Cancer and the Birth and the Lantern, and it's probably the longest one that I've written, but it's a bunch of tracks that I've like accumulated over the years of writing and just trying to make a story out of it. It's kind of fun. And then
now, do you sing? Like, do these have lyrics to them?
No, it's all instrumental.
Okay.
I mean, I can sing, but it's just not what I do these days.
I get that.
I'm producing a few songs. One from my buddy John Ball. It's gorgeous. He sings. He's a really good singer. Yeah, and then just continually just trying to work with clients, trying to work with new clients. I love working in Birmingham. I don't necessarily want to like venture out of the state. I feel pretty content. I just want to work with like really awesome people, and whatever that means.
What about a feature? Do you have any goal of ever scoring a feature?
I've talked to a buddy about doing a feature, and I'm still interested in doing that. But we'll just have to see how that goes. He works in production. Production guys like keep you humble. So like last night, I'm not going to say his name, but he knows who he is. He's the first. I like walk out of the theater. He was like, "Hey man, that looked really great." I was like, "Okay." And he just walked off. It's like, nice. Okay, can't have a win. Can't have a win at all. It's like it looked really great.
Yeah. That had nothing to do with you.
Exactly. It's like, hey, the film looked really great, and then just walked off. It's so awesome. Yeah.
Well, I've been amazed. First of all, just how many people are in the creative industry in the Birmingham space or Birmingham area, and then also how many of them are involved in film specifically. And I've talked with quite a few people that seem like feature is sort of where they're going towards. Really? Like I know Max Tatum, he's written a feature that he's hoping to direct and produce soon. I know even Brody Burgess, who was at the event last night, he's one that says he's got a feature that he wants to eventually get out there. It seems like there's always been a big commercial space in Birmingham, but it seems like the film space more and more has grown, and not just short films like we were able to watch last night, but even those feature films are more and more coming to the state, but I think more and more are growing out of the state of Alabama and the Birmingham area specifically.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to, it would have to be, no, I'm sorry. Let me say that over again. I would love to work on a feature. Absolutely. It's after working on these short films, I can't imagine doing it.
I get that, man. It seems like you would just bury yourself in your room for a long time, possibly.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it was such a good. There's a lot of things that I learned after doing these two short films back to back that I would never do again. So, but
You're not bitter at all.
no, I'm not. No. It's more of like my mistakes, not anyone
I'm
else's.
kidding. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my mistakes and
Well,
processes of how this is completely different than working on a commercial.
right.
Completely different, you know.
Well,
So
I think you went through those like growing pains to some degree as a professional. Is like you don't know something until you do it, you
yeah,
know, and
exactly right.
and at
That's
that
what-
point, then you learn your lesson, and you're like, I would do that differently next
Oh
time.
yes,
And
yeah,
so,
and that's the whole point of doing it. The whole point of doing it is like, I've never done this before. I've only worked in the commercial space, and so let's put these, you know, my talents or skills towards like a film
right,
and adding the emotion over a long period of time. And that's what I completely underestimated, the amount. Like you say, oh, you just need to develop a theme for a minute and 30 seconds. It's like, well, that theme has to be really freaking good because you're going to use it over and over again in different
right,
ways.
yeah,
And then to know how to use it in different ways. That's what threw me for a loop. You know, it's just, you can say, oh yeah, just put the notes on different instruments. Like it just does not work that way because it's not going to feel the exact same way, you know? So like those things, like how to keep a theme interesting and clever and, but also bring the viewer back to what you're trying to say, you know? And so that theme has to hold a lot. It has to be put in the right spot. It has to be put like here so that it can mean this later. And so that's what Ethan and I were trying to figure out. It's just like, how can we put something here, reprise it here to where it's always drawing you back to that first expression of the theme, you know, that first encounter with the theme. So
I do have to say I'm extremely jealous in the quality of storytellers that you were working on with both of these projects. I mean,
yeah,
Billy Ivy is such an incredible storyteller, and the whole Cedar Creative team.
yeah,
I mean, I think I was talking with it may have been Brody that I was talking with. Um, yeah, may have been Brody. Anyway, we'll say it was Brody. If it
yeah,
was somebody else and they remember
yeah,
this conversation,
yeah,
I'm sorry, but anyway, we were talking about just how like Cedar Creative for the commercial storytelling space, they're
yeah,
sort of held up as one of the greats in the Birmingham area. I mean, they
yeah.
really. So I mean, here you and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying in the sense that you're not a great storyteller, but
Oh, no.
you were working with and for, like, you are part of that incredible storytelling team. So props to you on that. Props to them.
Oh yeah.
The past two premieres, I count myself fortunate. I keep telling people, like, at some point somebody's going to be like, who is this Brian Pope? Quit inviting him to stuff. Quit
Oh
saying
man.
yes to him. This
No, man.
imposter.
No,
At some
no,
point, that's all going to come out, but
no.
it hasn't yet. So don't
Yeah.
don't tell everybody yet.
I'm not gonna, I won't. No, and that's again, they are in Birmingham. We are fortunate to have wonderful storytellers. Again, I think it's a there is a um, there's a time I was working at a studio over here in Gadsden. It's close to Jacksonville. Okay, and so it records all of Rick Bragg's. You know Rick Bragg? He's an author.
That name, yeah.
All over but shouting was probably his. I think he won the Pulitzer for. But he's one of the most prolific Southern authors ever. And so I was recording his audiobook about his dog that eventually you find out is actually more about his brother who passed away. And so we went out to lunch. I ate at a meat and three. I was like, I'm with Rick Bragg. I probably just need chicken livers. So I ate chicken livers because he said they were good. And just sitting across.
I don't think I would have taken his word on it, but not done it.
No, they were so good. So good.
Really?
This place was sketchy though. This place was not clean. Okay. But it was with Rick Bragg. And so but we're just talking about, he would just refer to Southerners as like his people. Even if he disagreed with them, even if you disagree with the way that they spoke, believed, like they're still part of his people. And like that sort of like just stuck with me of like, hey, there's a he's a brilliant storyteller, and that's where like I kind of recognize like Southerners are brilliant storytellers, and there's something that we need to like let people know. Some wonderful stories coming out, just like books being written. Billy's writing these, chronicling these beautiful stories, and then films that are coming out. I mean, Marcus's films are so clever. Like, they were really clever, and he put so much in. Like, he put a comedy in to a horror genre. I've seen some of the other ones he's done, and they're very well done, very clever. And with Cedar, just the story. We worked on we just did a children's hospital spot that like it just made me bawl. And I knew like what was coming, but like it was for the children's hospital fundraiser, and it just literally, the pacing of everything just brought tears to your eyes. And we're just lucky to be around some amazing storytellers. And
I agree.
Yeah, you can probably take out the whole Rick Bragg thing. I don't know.
No, I loved it. I thought it was great, man. And
but just but that's kind of why I want to stay in the South. It's like, hey, there's more stories to tell that these people have to offer. I don't really want to venture out, but I kind of want to support what is happening here. Yeah. Right. I want to support what's happening here and not keep venturing out. Like there's something bigger out there. There probably is. There probably is something bigger out there that can be a part of. But there's so many wonderful things happening here. I want to be a part of every single one of those.
Well, and I don't think you just support those stories. I think you enhance them, just like we were talking about with the music in these films and these commercials, man. You've done, and props to you on this, because I really do believe that you don't just simply support the community and cheer them on from the sidelines, but you're out there with them. You are part of making those stories hit. You're part of making those stories like, what's the term you use? Visceral. It's like that like we feel it in part, not just because of the visuals, not just because of the dialogue, not just because of the narrative, but because of that music and because of those sounds that you intricately weave in there. And seriously, props to you. I think you are killing it in so many ways. In the horror genre, sometimes literally. So,
it's so wild. It's like I don't even watch horror, so hopefully, like I did something good.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Anyway, so thank you. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Genuinely.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I enjoy watching and hearing your stuff. Unfortunately, I am doing a disservice to you and your work by us not hearing a single bit of it on this episode. I always mute the audio whenever we play like videos, and I'm like, I know this is wrong. Like, I'm not supposed to do it this way. But to be honest, like, one of the main reasons I do that is I haven't taken the time to figure out a really good system to have the audio play into this. I've got a couple of options, but usually it ends up looping my audio in twice. So, and I just haven't taken the time to really figure that out.
Yeah.
And so that's on me, but I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Right. But last question I have, and you've already touched on this a little bit whenever you talked about your family. But also I think you've sort of touched on this with just your admiration for the Birmingham area sort of creative industry in general and the people that make it up. But who inspires you? Who pushes you to sort of like reach to that next level? And that may be people that you look at from afar and you say, oh my gosh, like I would love to be able to do a little bit of what they've done, more, in your own way, or maybe even more like them. Or those people that you're right next to in the trenches that sort of take your work that you're doing and sort of push you to new levels that you never thought you could even get to.
Oh yeah, it's both and, man. I think, if it's someone from like way out there, probably the most inspiring would be Brian Eno.
Okay.
His like his pioneering of ambient music, his methodology, his way of like thinking the studio is the instrument,
Can you say
like
his name again?
Brian Eno.
Eno.
Yes, and his influence in the music world is unmatched. I mean, we wouldn't have Viva La Vida by Coldplay. We wouldn't
Yeah.
have Joshua Tree without him, and all this amazing music. But he's like pioneer futurist in music, um, and so he's someone that I always just want to kind of keep uh, a pulse on by all of
Yeah.
his artists. And so he's, I think, just his how to put it, yeah, his philosophy of the studio being the instrument, his methodology. I even have these cards that he wrote with Peter Schmidt that I'll use when I get stuck. It's a deck of cards. Okay, what is it called again? Yeah, oblique strategies. It could be like, this one is like, you just have to go with whatever the first card is. You have to apply it to what you're working on. And it's awesome. Who should be doing this job? How would they do it? And you just kind of have to figure out what that means in the moment. Or use unqualified people. I've done, what we think is these people, professional musicians.
I that person for you. I'm completely unqualified for anything that you need.
Bring my kids in on this one,
Yeah.
And I didn't. There's a song that's on my album, and I was trying to make it sound like we have a pond in the front part of the property, and I was writing a song called "The Pond." It's a short little song because it's a small pond, and so they were working on their tin whistles. So I went out and got my recorder, recorded the tin whistles, and stacked them all together and made these bird sounds out of tin whistles and resampled them. But anyway, so he's a continual outside inspiration, Brian Eno. But then just working with people in town, like I said, Ethan really challenged me with this film. Working with Taylor Robinson is a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ford Wiles is a challenge. They all have different expectations. And Roy Burns, working with these guys, these creative directors, getting in their heads, not in like a weird way, but just getting into like their expectations and putting it into music that's always a challenge. And that inspires me. I love being given something that seems impossible. And I feel like this whole situation is just impossible, like living up a guest and writing music and taking care of my family. That is also, it feels impossible, but rising to that challenge I feel like it's what everybody wants to do. It's being given something that seems impossible and overcoming it and just taking those, but sticking with it, like not giving up on whether it's the commercial or the film. It's just being able to stick with it and the joy that comes, or the frustration that comes after finishing it, whether good or bad, so if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. Sometimes I just ramble. I'm like, I don't even know.
Well, that's what podcasts
Talking
are
over
for,
here,
right?
I mean, I'm up in Gadsden, man. Like, I don't know if I'm making sense anymore.
You definitely are, man. I think for me, it definitely resonates, the fact of your respect for the industry, your admiration for the people that you work alongside, and but I definitely know that that admiration goes both ways, because I know those same people, they keep coming to you for a reason, man. I mean, you're delivering. So I'm glad to hear sort of that. Just sort of the nuances to your type of work. It's really cool. Like I said before, I don't understand it, and it's really neat to sort of peek a little bit behind the curtain to sort of see what's the secret, or what's the process like, what's even just the rationale behind it. It's always sort of neat. Probably my favorite part was the part about you talking about finding that thing, you know, and even how you did it with Billy's video. That's really cool and sort of eye opening for me in how you may start some projects. So,
yeah. I mean, yeah,
yeah.
that's what we're looking for, man.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for just sharing
Yeah,
with me today. I do
of
have one
course.
more thing I want to pull up on your Instagram.
Oh, okay.
No, this isn't
Okay.
bad. This is actually something that I think is really neat because you did talk about the fact that you write, you know, just in general songs, but this seems like a poem. Maybe is that correct?
Yeah.
That you've written here?
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's beautiful just the way that you do write. I don't know if you write much else, if there's other
I
things,
do.
like, is this something that you do consistently? Is this something that you sort of found, like, do you find yourself going back to writing these kind of pieces? And in this case, it does seem more of like a testimony, like a testimonial kind of
Yeah.
piece. But it was really beautiful. I love sort of the imagery that you give, as well as sort of the story in general with it. But I was curious, how much of this kind of stuff do you still do?
Yeah. I mean, like I have a note on my phone called Alabama Brine, and I don't know why, but I'm like, that kind of sounds cool. And so I'll write inside of that. So I mean, there's paragraphs and sentences and like just anything that I feel like is the thing,
Yeah.
like with words, whether it sounds good, what the certain words like sound beautiful together, and so like if that speaks to me or if it's like a thought
Yeah.
and or frustration. So yeah, I do write, but that came out, I was at the beach and I just kind of like I couldn't sleep, so I just wrote all that in one sitting, and it's never
Yeah.
been edited. So it's been a while since I've read it, but it's,
You're gonna self edit now.
I'm gonna self edit it now, so really mess it up. Um,
Nah,
but yeah, so I want to explore more in that, in writing.
and you called it Alabama brine, sort of
Yeah,
like
this is
what
like
you
my
season.
think box, like
Yeah.
my word box.
Yeah.
Um, and that's like even like song titles are that way for me. It's just, we have so my album 3 Years of Birdsong Cottage, the first title is A Tunnel Through the Closet. Well, upstairs we have a tunnel that's in the closet that goes between our bedroom and the kids' bedroom, and their kids' bedroom is like painted with the Wind in the Willows story that
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
mother-in-law did. So they live in this really imaginative, like big room, and then they have like a tunnel that literally goes through the closet. It's like that sounds imaginative, but like that is literally something that we have, the tunnel through the
Right.
closet.
Yeah.
We had this 30-year-old jasmine plant that unfortunately died 2 years ago. It lives off the balcony. It was huge, but during like the cold snap like 2 years ago, it dropped down to 9 degrees and killed the jasmine.
Mm.
But before that, it was just beautiful, lush, white jasmine. And so Cardinals did actually live in the jasmine, but like Cardinals in the Jasmine is another song title. But I like would write those things down. So that's kind of like what's in there. I'm working on a song that I wrote with Cedar, not working, but I wrote a song with one of Cedar's projects that I'm going to release. And it's called Daddy Daughter Dance. And it's just like the emotions like with that title does something, it's just like just those few words, like coupled with that emotion, like it kind of, if you have a daughter and you've ever danced with her, you get it,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you're like, oh, that's it, like I don't need much more than that, but that's it, And so yeah, words are really important. But I don't really use those fancy titles when writing contracts. I'm like, demo 3,
Well, I thought this was beautiful. I thought it was well written, and I enjoyed just sort of experiencing that whenever I was looking through and doing the research on you. So,
Oh yeah,
like I said, I dig a little deep, even though this wasn't too deep. This was just at the end of your.
there.
It's on your Instagram. So,
Yeah, I encourage everyone to
one
read it.
One last question that I've got. I know I keep saying that, I think, but this is literally the last question. And this is more curiosity after what you just said. And really, to be honest, honestly, I get frustrated with my son asking me these kind of questions. So this may be annoying to you. He does these, which would you rather or something. I don't know if you've ever had these kind of questions asked. It's like, this or that. So,
Okay.
would you rather lose your sight or lose your hearing?
Sight. No.
So you.
No. Yeah. Sight. Yeah. Yeah.
I think of just the work you do, man. I mean, like, even the way that you've described the daddy-daughter dance, I think of like the sounds that you feel like embody what that felt like.
Yeah.
Is more important, it seems, than the actual like visual of it, which is really neat. It's a neat thought to have.
Oh yeah,
because I almost feel the other way. Like I think of the beauty that I see, that I would never want to sort of like miss out on that. But for you, it's almost like the beauty that you hear.
Yeah, I could not go without hearing "I love you" from my kids ever. So, and that is like in the way, like obviously in the way of physically hearing, but also in the way our relationship is too. Yeah. So like everything, like the idea that I get to work from home and to be here with them as they're young and growing up, and it is, they're the most inspiring things in my life, are my kids. And so being able to hear "I love you" because I treat them and I'm raised them well, like that's what I want to hear as an old man.
I like it. Well, from one old man to another, Adam, thank you so much for joining me today. This really was a treat for me. It was good. So great meeting you at the first premiere for I'm dropping Billy's for Billy's piece. Yeah. And then it was so great getting the invitation for you to come to the premiere last night. And then it sort of to close a great experience out a little bit with you today, being able to hear more of your story. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. And the Bullwinkle side of me thanks you as well. More people need to know. More people need to know.
I agree. I mean, I think I'm glad to be able to put it out there. And I imagine people like Billy Ivy will never let you down you forget that.
No. It's just like, I got to balance out. I'm like, is this going to ruin my reputation or is it going to just enhance it? Probably. I don't know.
I can't. I'm pretty sure Creating Creators podcast has already ruined a few people's reputations. So sorry.
Whatever. Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's very enjoyable, to, being able to enlighten people or maybe a little bit on what I do,
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Well, I appreciate it.